Hello there my friends who listen to Ebird Online, and I'm back with another review. And yes, as promised, it's time for part 2 of this week's shenanigans with Ariela and Biniyam. Yes, it's 90 Day Fiance the other way, Season 6, Episode 3. And as we know, last night we had to listen to the ridiculous outpourings of Ariela, who despite repeatedly telling Biniyam that she and Leandro were just friends, disintegrated into a bipolar perimenopausal Stephanie-esque mess when Biniyam decided to casually inquire as to why they split up, and the makeup she'd earlier so heavily applied was dripping down her neck. Do you still fancy her, Leandro? The problem is, yes he does. I can tell by the way that he's looking and she's looking that they're still both up for a sneaky shag. And hand on heart, I think the only problem for Leandro is baby Avi. And guys, I peeped something yesterday, but I didn't quite know how to articulate what I was feeling, what I was thinking. As Leandro was holding baby Avi, I thought about it and finally I've resolved it. It was almost like he was appraising Avi, finding out, does Avi like me? Thinking, do I like Avi? Imagining, could I be Avi's stepfather? Could I, Leandro, bond with Avi? And that's what I believe was taking place as he held baby Avi. So guys, this is the story that keeps on giving. This week's episode was explosive and I've drawn some very interesting conclusions from it all. But just before we get into all of that, please, if you haven't done so yet, consider subscribing to my channel. It's fun over here. I drop videos whenever I can be bothered. And guys, if you don't have your notifications on, you'll miss them. Also, don't forget to smash the like button if you enjoy the review. And so without further ado, I give you Ariela and Biniyam. And first up we see Biniyam, and we see him pulling weights and doing pull-ups. And Biniyam tells us, I can see there are very strong feelings between Leandro and Ari, and I feel very scared. Oh, poor Biniyam. He said, I don't feel good inside. Well then go outside. It's what I normally do. But poor Biniyam. It was an absolute shit shower yesterday. And neither one of this couple considered the fact that Biniyam was even sitting there when they were having their heart-to-heart and closure talk. And next up, Ariela's talking to production, and she tells them that she hates the way that she and Leandro ended, and she never normally has regrets, but this she does regret. And it's never really made clear to us, does she regret that it ended, or does she regret the way that it ended? Or in fact, I guess both. So she and Leandro are standing in the kitchen, and once again Ariela is grinning like a Labrador at Leandro. And as they gaze intensely at each other, he asks, would you like a hug? Oh lord, it started with a hug, and then they talk about the previous night's meltdown and the high emotions. And Ariela said to Leandro, I feel that the way I broke up with you was terrible. Yes, Ariela, it was. It was both callous and cavalier. And she continued, I always knew that we were supposed to be together and that we were going to be together. And Leandro said, well, the baby changed everything. And outside he told production that they broke up multiple times, so he kind of figured they'd just get back together again. And Ariela rang him to say, I'm pregnant. But then he said quite ominously, and so that was the end of the story. Interesting. But I've got to say, the more I see baby Avi, he's so bloody cute, he's gorgeous. If there's a baby that can turn things round, my money's on Avi. And also, and I'm not saying that I necessarily agree with this, but there is a thought process here. Also, if they decide to go and live in America, Leandro won't have to compete with Biniyam over fathering duties because Biniyam will be all the way back in Ethiopia. It's really not very nice, but that is what Biniyam is under at the moment. And really, this is the shitstorm that Ariela's helping to create. So Biniyam decides to take Leandro training at the gym. Now I don't know what kind of training this is going to be. It could be weight training, MMA or boxing training. The only thing I know for sure is that Biniyam's going to kick Leandro's freaking head in. Given that Biniyam's an MMA champion, I have no problem at all in predicting the outcome of this bout. I've got a feeling it's pretty much going to be like a mismatched undercard. So the two guys go to the gym, and it turns out that Leandro is a much better boxer than I thought. So Biniyam had the training pads and Leandro had the boxing gloves, and it was all good-natured at first, but then things took a turn for the worse. And Leandro was punching the gloves quite quickly, but Binny kept on slapping Leandro over the head with his training pads like a little bitch. But guys, as he was doing it, he was smiling and saying, wake up, as he slapped away. And Leandro was all over the place. Biniyam, he's both dazed and confused because the trainer is attempting to knock his lights out. And they're sparring around the gym now. But the slaps over the head with these giant training pads were now coming thick and fast from Biniyam. They were coming down at a rate of knots. And all of a sudden, Leandro ripped his gloves off and said, yeah, you want to fight? "Oh, Leandro, don't do it. He's not worth it. Be careful, Biniyam. He'll have ya." And Leandro raced towards Biniyam, and he gave him a couple of roundhouse kicks, and he went full MMA mode. But Biniyam quite simply lifted him right up in the air and slammed him to the floor. He put his foot between Leandro's legs and his arm around Leandro's neck, and he squeezed until Leandro went a lovely shade of puce and his eyes bulged out of their sockets. The game was up, Biniyam had won. And Leandro tapped Biniyam twice on the leg, but still Biniyam didn't let go, and then he tapped on the floor twice as well to signal, "That's it, bout over, get off, you won." But Biniyam held on to him for another few seconds and then finally released him. My God, Biniyam, talk about poking the bear. And Biniyam later told production that his favourite boxer is the Boston Strangler. Guys, I thought he was going to try and kill him. And after this takedown, Biniyam said to Leandro, "Oh, I'm really sorry about that. Sometimes when I'm fighting, I just can't control myself." Biniyam, stop lying. You knew exactly what you were doing. You started planning this probably the day that Leandro booked his trip to Ethiopia. This is 100% what you wanted. But then the two guys decided to sit down and have a chat. And Biniyam said, "Why did you come to Ethiopia?" And Leandro said, "She begged me." Ari said that she was really lonely. And Biniyam said, "Do you still have feelings for her?" Leandro paused for a moment. You don't just stop loving someone when the relationship finishes. I care about Ari. But there's only one thing that Biniyam really wants to know. Did you do the sex with Ari? What? Did you do the sex? Did you two sleep together when you were in New Jersey? And then he started scratching his head and he said, "Don't worry, you have nothing to worry about." Oh, Leandro, that's not a no now, is it? And Binny later to producers said, "I don't trust Leandro at all. He was and really nervous when I asked him." Well, I've got to admit, guys, it wasn't the emphatic no we were hoping for now, was it, Bim? He had very shady body language. And whilst I don't necessarily think they slept together, I think they did get extremely close. But guys, something's just struck me. If they had a couple of weeks in this house in New Jersey when Ariela was already pregnant and nothing was going on, why did they not have their closure chat then? Because there wasn't any closure then. The closure has occurred now, for the first time in Ethiopia. Now why would that be? Interesting. And so when Biniyam went home, he and Ari were in the bedroom and she was making the bed, for what seemed like the very first time. And Ari told production they were gone for absolutely ages and my mind was racing. I'm really worried about what they were talking about. Well, Ariela, if you and Leandro didn't do anything in New Jersey, what possibly could you be worried about? And Ari asked Biniyam, "How did it go earlier at the gym?" Biniyam paused. And I think to myself, where's Leandro? More than likely still at A&E. And Biniyam said, "Well, I asked him if you slept together in New Jersey." And Ari said, "What did he say?" Well, Ari, you should know what he said. Surely if you didn't, it's obvious that he would have said no. And then she said, "I was 5 months pregnant." Oh, so what, Ariela? That means literally nothing. Don't believe me? Ask Katie Price. And Biniyam said, "He told me that you didn't sleep together." He didn't really, but go on. And then he said he tried to lie to me. He went, you've got nothing to worry about. And Ariela brushed it off and said, "Oh, he's always like that. I don't know. That's how he talks." Really, Ariela? I've been listening to him talk for the past few days, and I find him to be very eloquent. No ums and ahs that I've heard. And it seems to me definitely that Ariela's hiding something. And Ariela said, "Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. I'm going to be really embarrassed. What did you do that for, Biniyam? How am I going to look Leandro in the face? Who cares? I'm your partner. What do you care about your ex so much for?" And later to production, Ariela said, "It's really demeaning. He doesn't trust me." Ariela, that's because you lied. You told him that you were in New Jersey in a house on your own, and you weren't. You were with your ex-husband. You had no plans to tell Biniyam this. If he doesn't trust you, that's all of your own making. And the final time we meet up with this couple, they're all in the minibus on the way to dinner. And as they're sitting there, Biniyam's making furtive texts, as he does. And Ariela said, "What are you doing?" And he said, I'm inviting somebody. And it turns out it's Cyan. Cyan? You might remember her from last season. It's been his ex-girlfriend and dance partner and bottom bongo extraordinaire. You remember? The one that Aries' mum said was absolutely gorgeous. That one. And so they all sit down in the restaurant, and Ari theorises to production that Biniyam's trying to get revenge on her by inviting Sion. You don't say, Ari. But this proves to me she knows she's doing something wrong. Otherwise, why would she think that somebody would need to get revenge on her? And so as they're sitting looking at the menus, in sashayed Sion. And she looked fabulous, resplendent in a red bodycon dress, with curls cascading over her shoulders. And for the second time today, Leandro's eyes popped out of his head, on stalks. And guys, she was super glammed up, and she sat down at the table. And Biniyam introduced everybody. Sion looked at Leandro and said, he's cute. And Leandro simply picked his jaw up off the floor. And outside to producers he said, she's absolutely gorgeous, she's extremely beautiful. To me, it doesn't make much sense why they're not together. Leandro, maybe it's the baby. So back at the table, Ari says, I've wanted to ask you this for so long. Why did the two of you break up? And Biniyam looked horrified. Sion didn't look at anyone except for Biniyam. And she said to him in Almeric, their language, tell them that we've forgotten. And you could tell that neither of them wanted to say why they'd split up. But Leandro's clocked on, and he leaned across the table and said to Ariela, he cheated on her. And quick as a flash she said, did he cheat on you? Tell the truth, did he cheat? And both Sion and Biniyam's body language told me that this was entirely true. But what was really interesting was, as Ariela was saying, did you cheat, Binny was barely perceptibly, but I did see it, nodding his head in agreement. Body language 101. And then Binny explained to production that she thought he was cheating. And so they paused in their relationship and they didn't speak for a couple of months. But in that time, Binny got together with his ex-wife. And then Binny explains, with laughter, to all those at the table, that he turned up at an event with this new girl and they were hand in hand. When Sion said, who's she? He lied and said, she's just a model. I'm casting her for a film. And he giggled with laughter. Not really that funny. That just means you're a lying cheat, Biniyam. And Sion told producers that although Binny tried to deny it, it was as clear as day that Binny was cheating. And she said, I didn't want to accept the truth, but I had to. But then Binny reverts to type. God, guys, he's such a liar. When he was talking to production, he said, Sion's an extremely jealous girl, and I wasn't cheating at all. But she accused me of it, and we had a break, and we split up. And after a couple of months of not talking, I thought we were broken up, and that's when I got with my ex-wife. So suddenly now, even though you had the chance to deny cheating in front of everyone at that table, you said nothing, leading everyone to believe that yep, it was true. But now when you're on your own with the production, you're saying no, I didn't cheat at all. Biniyam, we see you. You're as good a liar as you are a singer. But once again, Ariela's brow was furrowed, and she said to Sion, do I have anything to worry about? And Sion looked at her, she looked at Biniyam, and then she sort of looked the other way, and you could tell she really didn't want to answer. And then she said very diplomatically, you love him, and he loves you. You have to have trust, right? You have confidence in your love, no? That's quite right, no. No, she doesn't have confidence in her love. And she doesn't have confidence because she's engaged to one of the most prolific cheats Addis Ababa has to offer, Biniyam the baby maker. And we finish off this section with Ariela talking to production, and she says Biniyam's a hypocrite as he's the cheater. Interesting word, hypocrite. And the way that Ariela tells it, it gives me the vibe that I've cheated, but he's cheated too, so he's the hypocrite having a go at me because of it. That's just how I took it. I'm not really talking about the literal definition of the word, but I'm just saying this is how I'm receiving that statement from Ariela. And that's where we end things for this week. So what does the Ebird make to all of this? Well, I think we've got a very similar scenario on both sides now. Previously, I thought that Ariela was manipulative and hanging the baby's head over Biniyam, but now I'm also beginning to think that she may have cheated. And even if she hasn't physically cheated, she's certainly mentally cheating because she's giving out all the signals that she would like Leandro back and that she feels regret and sorrow that they ever broke up. And she talks in the present tense when she says, I always knew we'd get back together. She could have said, I always thought that we would get back together. But no, I always knew that we would get back together. That's present tense. In addition to this, there's the lie about when they stayed together in New Jersey. Why didn't she tell Biniyam? She said it's because you would have been suspicious. Well, how much more suspicious do you think he is now he's found out via another route? And then finally, there's Leandro. The interaction between Ariela and Leandro is one of long-term lovers as far as I'm concerned. They're very tactile, they spend all their time looking at each other and grinning at each other as if Biniyam doesn't even exist. And then also, there's Leandro's actions. When Biniyam asked him straight out, "Did you have sex with Ari?" he pretended not to understand what he'd said. And even though Biniyam doesn't have the greatest English, it was very clear what he was saying. And then he had to say, "Did you sleep together?" And Leandro went, And instead of just saying emphatically, "No, we did not sleep together," he scratched his head and looked worried and then said, "You have nothing to worry about." Wrong, Leandro. He has everything to worry about. And then let's look at baby maker Biniyam. And really, guys, we've always known he's a cheat. I know there's not been any evidence, but this to me today was evidence. When he sat at the table with his ex and she said, "Biniyam was cheating on me," he gave a slight little nod of his head. And that nod leaves me entirely convinced that he was in fact cheating. And given that they'd gone out with each other for 7 years previously, they didn't speak for a couple of months, and he just got together with somebody else, got her pregnant and got married, and he admits himself, "I moved on very quickly." Guys, what usually happens when somebody says, "I moved on quickly"? That relationship was bubbling under the surface before. That's what usually happens. But ever the liar and ever the denier, Biniyam decides just a few moments later to production to deny everything and say, "No, she's just extremely jealous." So Sion, who's gorgeous incidentally, is extremely jealous of you. And then your ex-wife, she left you for cheating as well. And again, you said, "She thought I was cheating, but she was wrong and that's why she left me." Women don't leave the fathers of their children and move continents on a whim. She would have had more than just a little inkling. Biniyam's one of those guys who thinks, unless I'm literally caught with my trousers down, I'll deny it. And even then I'll say, "The buckle on my belt broke." Biniyam will never accept or admit that he's cheated. And we see the same signs from him again, which is what I think has sown the seeds of this discourse in the first instance. He's been staying out all night and going away for 24 or 48 hours with no word about where he is and is not answering his phone. And I think that's what's led Ariela to reconsider all her options and to see if she can cast her line out and reel Leandro back in again. And then also to cap things off, when Ariela point blank asked Sion, "Have I got anything to worry about? You work with him." She was unable to answer, and after much thought she said, "Well, you have to have confidence in your relationship, you know." I don't think that she's sleeping with Biniyam, because I don't think Biniyam would be ridiculous enough to bring her into this environment. He doesn't know what she might say, but I think she sees how Biniyam moves with other people in the club and with patrons of the club and other dancers probably, and she knows good and well that Biniyam isn't confined just to Ariela. That's what I think. But guys, tell me what you think. Put your thoughts in comments down below. Do you think Biniyam's cheating, Ariela's cheating, or both? And do you think, like I do, that Biniyam is just an incorrigible cheat and he'll never stop? That's just in his DNA. I kind of think that at this point. And what do you think to Ari's actions? I think she should be more mature. Instead of just trying to make Biniyam jealous with your ex-husband, why don't you sit Biniyam down and put parameters in your relationship instead of just playing these silly games? But Biniyam had better watch his back, because from how Ariela treated Leandro at the end of their 10-year marriage, she's not above cutting somebody off from a great height, it would seem. So guys, thank you so much for listening. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel, join the Ebird family, and I'm going to get on with my next video. You've been listening to Ebird Online, and I bid you good day.